Yesterday I had my week 3 weigh-in and I was really excited because I had finally lost 10 pounds, which was my first big goal. So I lost 10 pounds in 3 weeks time, and I have not recorded until now because I've had so many thoughts swimming around in my mind and I have been really unsure of how to feel about it. Let's talk about the little voice. I have a little voice that floats through my mind on a pretty regular basis, and that little voice always tells me I am not good enough. That I'm not a good enough mother, that I'm not a good enough wife, that I'm not a good enough friend, that I'm not a good enough daughter or sibling. And sometimes that voice gets really loud. And this week, that voice has been loud. And I have struggled because it dawned on me that I have lost 10 pounds of weight physically, but up here, I have not lost 10 pounds of weight because the voice in my head is the same voice that made me 194 pounds. The voice that tells me you're never gonna be good enough, you're never gonna measure up, you're always gonna be this big disappointment, you may as well quit. That is the voice that has literally held me prisoner in this body. And I believe that that voice comes from hell. And I need to get better at, when I hear that voice in my head, at telling it to go to hell, because that's where it came from and that's where it belongs. It's so destructive because what happens is when I listen to that voice, then I go through my day and I look for what I like to call qualifiers to the voice. So if I'm already thinking that about myself, then if somebody were to give me a criticism or express some level of disappointment, in my mind I'm like, I'm not good enough. And it just piles on and that voice becomes louder and louder and louder, and all it's going to do is destroy me. It's gonna put me right back where I was, because if you are 194 pounds up here, guess what? Pretty soon your body's gonna follow suit. I do not think the voice in my head is the voice of like the person at my goal weight. I think that it is the voice of the person where I started. And the only way to change that is to change the voice, to change the narrative in my mind. So instead of constantly thinking, you're a disappointment, you're never good enough, you're never gonna measure up, that I say to myself, you are good enough. You can achieve anything you want to achieve. You can become anything you want to become, and you have all of the capacity to reach those goals. And that is my big goal this week, is that whenever I hear that little negative voice in my head, that I tell it to go to hell. I really just don't see myself being successful at this long term if I cannot replace that negative cycle of thinking. So I'm gonna work on that this week. I'm gonna keep you updated on how that's going. And I would love to hear your feedback, your comments. Do you have a little voice in your head that you need to tell to go to hell? Because if you do, silence it now.